Okay, and we're live now, thanks.
Lovely, thank you very much. Good evening and welcome everyone to this Cabinet meeting. I'd like to welcome not just Cabinet members and deputies, but also members of the public who've joined us tonight to make some presentations, which I hope are going to be quite interesting and enlightening, and also those who are joining us on our YouTube channel. Before the meeting starts, I'd like to invite our committee member and scrutiny manager to explain how proceedings will work tonight.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just do a roll call quickly of officers. Anthony Roach.
Yes, good evening.
Thank you. Steve Crowley.
Yes, good evening.
Thank you. Martin Lawrence.
Good evening, yes.
Thank you. Helen Flage.
Yes.
Thank you. Antonio Champa.
Good evening, present.
Thank you. And Joe Dufficy.
Present.
Thank you very much. Please be advised that this meeting is being audio and video recorded and live streamed to the Council's YouTube channel. Recordings will be available there and via the ModGov website after the meeting has ended. As there is a part 2 component to this meeting, the live stream will be paused before consideration of those items. Please wait for confirmation from me that the live stream has been paused and the public gallery cleared before discussing any part 2 items. If a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on the microphone unit. The microphone will light up green and the chair will be alerted of your request to speak. When the chair invites you to speak, your microphone will be made live and will turn red, at which point you can speak. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone unit. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room and the result will be visible on the YouTube stream. Are there any questions? Back to you, Chair.
Lovely, thank you very much. So first item that I have is apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Judy Billing and Councillor Chris Lucas is going to be standing in as her deputy to present reports, etc. However, as Chris is a deputy, he won't be able to vote on items. I've also been notified that Tom Plater is unable to be with us this evening as well. Again, as Tom is a deputy, he's apologised for not being here. But this doesn't need to be marked on his attendance register. I'm going to change around the order that I have these in because actually there's an important announcement that I would like to make before we get into the substantive business tonight. And that is, as I'm sure a number of us are aware, we recently lost a former cabinet colleague, Councillor Gary Grindle, who sadly passed away on the 26th of May. And I'd like to invite members present to join me for a minute's silence in remembrance of Councillor Grindle. Thank you, colleagues. Gary was a long-serving member of this council and served the community, not just in Wilbury Ward, but across the entirety of North Herts for many years and made a significant contribution to making people's lives better. His funeral is tomorrow. However, if members would like to say any brief words here, I'm happy to allow that before we get on with tonight's business. Yes, Councillor. I'm going to take Councillor Albert first.
Thanks, Chair. It's a really sad evening. I just wanted to say two things. I mean, first of all, after my wife passed away, Gary was unfailingly helpful, sympathetic, ran a fundraising function in Ada Garden House Hospice when my wife passed away. I really miss Gary tremendously. When you went out canvassing with Gary, you never saw Gary very much because he'd stopped and talked to virtually every resident in a row that he'd helped at some point over the last 20 years. He is an exemplar of what I'd like to be. I can never quite actually aspire to be as a councillor. Going to miss him a huge amount, and really great sympathy to Tracy and all his family at this sad loss.
Thank you. Sean.
Worked with Gary over the last year as his deputy. I can hand on heart say he was absolutely fantastic in his role, not only as exec member for housing and environmental health, but also to the community that he served. He was very well thought after, not only by the public, but also by me. It was an absolute pleasure working with him, and I have big boots to fill. But do you know what? More than that, he was just a thoroughly decent chap. He was a really nice bloke to work with, and he will be sorely, sorely missed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I will take us back into the agenda as it's supposed to be now. And item number 3 is the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 22nd of March 2022. I'd like to propose that we take these as read and approve as a true record of the minutes of that meeting. Can I have a seconder, please? Yes, Councillor Brown.
I'm happy to second, thank you.
Excellent. Any comments? Nope. Okay. Can we move to the vote, please?
Chair, that's carried.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay. So, as I've already said, welcome everyone. Especially to the members of the public that are with us tonight. Members are reminded that this council has declared a climate emergency, and this is a serious decision and means that as this is an emergency, all of us, officers and members, have that in mind as we carry out our various roles and tasks for the benefit of our district. More details are included on the agenda front sheet. Members are also reminded to make declarations of interest before an item, and the detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under the chair's announcements on the agenda. I'm going to take the part 2 items, which are item 16 and item 15 prior to item 14. Okay, and before we get into the items that we have to consider, I have got 4 presentations lined up this evening from members of the public. So thank you very much for taking the time to come and join us. It's been a while since we've had such an active public participation at a cabinet meeting. So very, very much welcome back to everyone. I'll take each presentation in line with the order of business which is set out in our agenda. And please remember that each presentation should last no more than 5 minutes. I'll time it, but I'll be fair as well. And members may then, once you've completed your presentations, wish to ask you questions in order to clarify anything that's been raised during the presentation. So the first presentation that we're going to hear this evening is from Carolyn Cottier. So would you like to present to us, Carolyn?
Do I have to keep my finger on it to speak? Take up. Okay. Okay, so this information is urgent and must be relayed no later than the 21st of June 2022, since it affects tonight's agenda, item 8, strategic planning matters. It's our findings relating to the missing representations from the local plans examination in public, not Luton, sorry, NHDC, wherein hundreds of Regulation 19 participant submissions were discovered to have been lost. We have conducted a painstaking independent audit upon no fewer than 2,750 individual participant responses, but the latest still missing status stands at 445 lost documents. You should all now be aware that the inspector's final draft report for the local plan examination has been released. The letter is viewable upon the website as ED243, notifying everyone of this important development and the next stages of the examination. ED243 was dated the 6th of June 22, but it was only published after what we deemed to be an unfair delay. The 10th of June was when it was first publicly disclosed, in other words, well after its initial issue date, the 6th of June, and also well after the quality assurance check period of 48 hours was over. The Department for Levelling Up's quality assurance team would have to guarantee legal compliance, meaning all participatory submissions must be fully present at the time, not missing without explanation, and certainly not 445 of them. The final draft report is now back with the Council for a further 14-day fact check, which must logically have commenced on the 8th of June and must therefore conclude tomorrow on the 22nd of June. The breakdown of the missing evidence by area is as follows. 195 confirmed missing against the east of Luton sites, 113 objections against the Breachwood Green KW1 sites, 20 against Codicott, 33 Nebworth, 20 Bulldog, 8 Barkway, 56 missing from a range of other areas such as Purton, Gravely, Wymondley, Hitchin and others. So we can clearly see the worst hit areas are those against the strategic east of Luton Greenbelt sites, plus their neighbour, which is a stone's throw away, that of Breachwood Green. Just these two alone account for 308 of the missing documents. This deviation from due process affects all areas and all possible consultation stages, ranging from the original Regulation 19 local plan submission stage, held 6 years ago in 2016, to the later main modification consultation of 2019, and even the most recent final further modifications consultation held in 2021. In your emails, you will all find the link to my YouTube channel containing videos capturing evidence of every single missing item. Also, I have provided the full list of representatives' names, EIP ID numbers, plus dates and titles of exactly which evidence submissions are gone. The inspector and NHDC were alerted to the fact of missing evidence back in July 21, which you can see admitted in ED233 and ED233A, where some 169 individual names are listed after the council was notified by us. Some of those are the ones still missing. Also, they posted a notice of missing representations on latest news and updates back on the 28th of March this year, claiming a recent software change was the cause and promising a resolution as soon as possible. However, the council's deadline for their fact check letter is tomorrow. We are in touch with many representees who are willing to provide testimony disputing the claim that this is not only a recent problem. They say they have never been able to open their documents. Now, I'd like to ensure some fully recorded questions. I put it to the council tonight on the eve of their final fact check declaration. Do we have their honest assurance and absolute guarantee that they will declare the total true number of missing representations to the inspector and ensure that he knows the truth about the current situation? And furthermore, have the councillors themselves been told about this problem?
Thank you very much, Carolyn. Okay, so does anybody have any questions for Carolyn? No, I'm not seeing any questions, but we have our lead officer present and obviously our planning portfolio holder as well, and they have heard you. Okay. Right. Okay, so the next person that I have down to present to us this evening is Cheryl Pears. You ready, Cheryl? Yeah.
3 representations sent via email in response to the further main modifications consultation held in May to July 2021 remain not lost, but actively obstructed. Ms. Claire Skeels, the Council's Senior Planning Officer, has indicated that she is solely responsible. On the 1st of April 2022, Ms. Cottier wrote to Ms. Skeels the following, open quotes here. The programme officer has raised the matter of a council policy, which you claimed to be the reason why 3 of my representations are missing and remain unpublished from the consultation portal. I strongly dispute that such policy exists, let alone one that can justify the suppression and withholding of legitimate submissions. That notwithstanding, I clearly told you that these are my representations and not cover letters when this issue was first raised with yourself and the programme officer last year in October 2021. I require that you provide the following things. 1, a written copy of this council policy. Evidence, this is number 2, evidence of where it was published before and during this examination in public consultation. Number 3, the committee and date at which this policy was agreed. 4, the part of the policy that defines what a cover letter is and describes the difference between it and an emailed representation. Number 5, the name of the person who decided that such policy should be applied to my 3 representations. Number 6, the date of the same. Number 7, the name of the person who seconded this decision. Number 8, the name of the person who notified the inspector that such policy would be applied to my 3 representations. And number 9, the date that that happened. On the 5th of April 2022, Claire Skeels replied, another quote, there is no specific council policy which is used for registering representations. The policy, referred to by Ms. St John Howe, is the process outlined in my email of 22nd of October 2021, rather than a formal council policy, and therefore I cannot respond to your questions. Close speech marks. Ms. Cottier tried one last time to appeal to reason. On the 5th of April 2022, she wrote, Dear Claire Skeels, you say this in your email today. Number 1, that no official council policy on this exists. Number 2, that it was merely your own individual personal decision and only that. Number 3, and that you did not second it with anybody else. Are you in complete agreement with those 3 points, or else would you like to add any further information or names? Ms. Skeels declined to comment. So the obstruction of these 3 examination in public items was established to be due to this improvised, unauthorized, solo decision. In other words, a whim. And a discriminatory whim at that, since everyone else with missing representations was promised rectification in ED 232A. So why not Ms. Cottier also? The database is full of hundreds of published emailed submissions. So what was so special about Ms. Cottier and her particular emailed submissions? Was there anything that they contained which was threatening or inconvenient in some way? Could there be some sort of gain to be had in ensuring their contents never appeared as a formal registered part of the examination in public? Reading directly from the legal guidance upon the Crown Prosecution Service website, the Fraud Act of 2006 covers possibly applicable areas. We will issue you with your own copy later. Section 2, fraud by false representation. Section 3, fraud by failing to disclose information. The defendant must have failed to disclose information to another person when he was under a legal duty to disclose that information, dishonestly intending by that failure to make a gain or cause a loss. Now, please ensure these next questions are fully recorded. I put it to the council tonight. We are asking for recorded guarantees on the following. Can the council commit to ruling out any failure to disclose information in their fact check response back to the inspector about the 445 missing representations? Furthermore, regarding the officer who has brazenly admitted that it was they who unilaterally decided to withhold submitted material, what will the council do about this unacceptable and rogue approach? Will the council give their recorded unwavering guarantee that they will immediately rectify this unacceptable and discriminatory omission of 3 legitimately submitted responses? Allowing these omissions to continue attracts fair comparison to certain sections within the aforementioned Fraud Act, as well as discriminatory actions as defined by the Equality Act. And to the east of Luton and Cockenhoe's main spokesperson, Ms. Cottier, will they issue her with a written apology and publish her 3 obstructed representations upon the examination website with an explanatory note. This is the last opportunity for the council to take immediate corrective action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pears. I can see my legal officer has been furiously scribbling notes to ensure that we're capturing the complaint points that you've raised. I believe that they've also previously come through to officers, so we'll note those. Colleagues, do you have any questions or sort of points that you need clarifying? Yes, Ruth.
Thank you. So as you may know, I'm new to this portfolio, and thank you very much for coming and making your points, and we have heard those. Just to be clear, it sounds like you are concerned about some processes that you don't feel were properly followed through. I'd just like to suggest that now that the local plan is out of our hands, that if you are still not satisfied, we have a formal complaints procedure that you can follow, and I can assure you that your complaint will be fully investigated, because we are committed to being an open and transparent council. I certainly do not wish to hide anything from members of the public, unless it's of a strictly confidential nature.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else have any questions or points that they would like Ms. Pearce to clarify? No? Okay. Thank you very much, Cheryl. Okay, next I have David Kirk. So David, I understand originally you were going to be speaking to 2 items on the agenda, one on the conservation area review and the second on the revenue outrun budget, but I've been informed now that it's just the conservation area that you're speaking on. Yep, lovely. Okay, so take it away.
Thank you very much, Chair. But what I wanted to speak on tonight is the Ashwell conservation area. I don't want to make any specific comments about the specific recommendations. What I want to talk about tonight is a governance issue surrounding this, and seek some comfort and some clarification from yourselves this evening. Firstly, I thought it was interesting, the report here tonight talks about the reasons for the recommendations are to appropriately assess conservation areas. And I think appropriately is a good word. You've got an officer set of recommendations, which were fed by a consultant's report, which was in itself fed by Ashwell Parish Council's submissions and suggestions. And it's the governance around that that is something which gives me some cause for concern. And I wanted to share it with you tonight. And I'm going to be just sharing a few extracts from Freedom of Information emails, which I've obtained about the process and the thinking that went into the submission to your consultants. And just as a bit of background colour here, the Parish Council's chair and vice chairman set up and sat on a working group to consider these matters, that then reported back to them as chair and vice chair of the Parish Council, and they endorsed their outcomes and sent it through to your consultants. The chair of the working group, when speaking about some areas that he thought should be included in the conservation area, said, "We have included, there are 2 areas highlighted in yellow. Please look at them in particular." This is to other members of the working group and the parish council's chair, "as I think they need to be strengthened and we haven't come up with anything." In another email, he said, We are looking for sound reasons to include this whole area. And the plums came to mind. I shall say more of plums later. The chair of the parish council responded to this email and said, as requested, I have tried to beef up the justification for these areas. All these emails are in the hands of your officers. I thought that was an interesting approach to planning. And pursuant to this notion of beefing up the justification for including areas without sound reasons, bear in mind that they were looking for sound reasons, we have an email from the parish clerk that contains, I have been meaning to take some cuttings and do a bit of guerrilla planting elsewhere, but never got around to it. What I have done this year is to plant some pips, nothing emerged yet, but hopefully in spring. So what this shows me is that in some areas were included by the parish council in their submission when they didn't have a sound reason. They post-justified that by looking around for justification and asked for folks to strengthen that. And the parish council's chairman was one who responded with ideas for beefing up the justification as requested. And the parish clerk is out busy guerrilla planting plums, which are subsequently mentioned in the documentation as a reason for including areas. Now, the question that I have in my mind, is that an appropriate way to deal with planning matters? It does rather suggest to me some sort of predetermination or improper purpose. You're sitting here tonight discharging a planning function. There's a lot of quasi-judicial and legislation around that. And I'm asking you, when you get to item 9, would you be clear, please, as a planning authority, would you include areas without sound reasons? Would you try to retrospectively beef up the justification once you've done that? And would you go out guerrilla planting plums to that end? And if I might ask you whether you would do that, I'd also ask you, do you think it's wise for other public bodies engaged in planning to do that? And here's the reason why it matters, and I'm just about to conclude, Chair. The reason why this matters, I've lost a bit of confidence as a result of reading that. Because in my experience, that's not how one would go about planning. And I haven't been able in the last 5 weeks to find a consultant or an officer of yours who's been able to tell me that they don't think it's a good idea, or indeed that they think it is a good idea. So I'd be interested to hear what your views are. I've lost a bit of confidence, and you and your cabinet can restore a bit of confidence tonight. And if I may say, if you were good friends to Ashwell and good friends to the parish council, you would want to clarify your position on such matters this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I can see Ruth's fingers hovering. Go on.
Go first. Thank you very much for your presentation. The consultant that we employed followed the best practice guidelines as outlined by Historic England, and we're confident that they did so independently. And actually tonight, we are not making a decision about this conservation area. The decision we're making is not about whether to agree it. The decision is for it to go out to wider consultation. So the public will have that opportunity to be consulted on it. And you obviously have that opportunity as a member of the public also to engage in that consultation. So that's what we're agreeing tonight. We're not actually agreeing the boundaries. We're putting it out for consultation. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions for David or any points that they want clarifying? I hear you. If you want to write an email to Ruth and officers, they can take things up further for you. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, So then, if we have heard from everyone that's speaking as part of public participation, I'm going to move us on to agenda item 7, which is those items which are referred from other committees. Now, I have the revenue budget outturn, which we're going to deal with as item 11. And as far as I'm aware, despite robust discussion at Finance, Audit and Risk Committee, there's not actually any references to Cabinet. So we'll just be running through the agenda items as they come. I don't think I have any referrals from overview and scrutiny on this agenda either. So that brings us on to the information note on the update for accommodation and support for single homeless people. I have Councillor Prendergast to present that.
Thank you, Chair. The information report is before you. It is quite self-explanatory. However, I do feel it is important that members and the wider public are aware of the demand for accommodation and support services for single homeless people in our district. And I just want to clarify some of the key points from the information report. There has been a large increase in demand for accommodation and support services since the start of the pandemic. There is a requirement on all local authorities to provide emergency accommodation for those approaching as homeless and who may be of priority need. This, of course, includes families and those with vulnerabilities. The pandemic saw everyone in, including those at risk of rough sleeping. Large number of those were placed in hotels due to lack of capacity in purpose-built accommodation. Over the last 2 years, there's been a cost to the council of over £400,000, and there are still high levels of those people in hotels. This is not sustainable, and nor does it provide long-term benefits to those placed in that type of accommodation. There is a cohort of people living in informal arrangements and in unstable living conditions, many of those who face challenging behaviours and unmet support needs. As you will see from this report, over 60% have 2 or more support needs, with poor mental health being the most common. As this report shows, there is still a high hotel use and gaps in our provision. And this only highlights the importance and need to continue to support homelessness services, particularly services that can provide the support required for those with complex needs. With this support, we can help people rebuild their lives, secure permanent accommodation, and ultimately help to end the cycle of homelessness. Any questions?
So glad you asked for any questions. I've got bizarrely a note saying no discussion required. Information. Oh, it says no decision. Sorry, I can't read. Too many similar letters altogether. Discussion. Does anyone have any questions or points that they want to raise based on what Sean said? It's Councillor Albert.
I'd just like to sort of thank Sean for bringing this report and officers to bring this report. And it's pretty stark, isn't it, as to not just the cost, because the cost is not the most important thing. It's the impact upon people's lives of the number of people, a number of single people homeless at the moment. And I certainly think that's something in the coming days and weeks that the council, I think, needs to highlight, and we obviously need to make sure that we've got as strong as an action plan of doing what we can about that, but also highlighting where there are gaps and what things that we need and what help we need from elsewhere, particularly here from government. And I certainly don't rule out us writing to government. And I think the other thing that struck me, and this wasn't, I wrote to on another matter to Martin Lawrence, our housing officer, earlier today, and what overlays all of this is that we maintain a waiting list of people looking for accommodation, which is currently running at somewhere near 2,500. So not only have we got this particular complex problem with homeless people, but we've now got also, that perhaps is less highlighted here and less highlighted perhaps in other work we do. Another 2,500 families also looking for accommodation. And that's the kind of stark position that we're facing and all councils are facing. And it really cries out for that, for actually the help and resources that are needed and the affordable and social housing that we need across the district. And that's something I think we do need to look at and see what more we can do and where we can highlight the issues here that Sean's brought to our attention. So very happy with I'm very sad about the report actually in many ways, but I'm thanks Sean for bringing this report to us and the information that's contained there.
Thank you very much. Gosh, it's almost as if there's a housing crisis in this country, isn't it? One day I will get through a cabinet meeting without making a sideswipe or a tongue-in-cheek comment. I don't think today's that day, though. Thank you very much, Sean, and thank you for the hard work that you and Alistair and Martin and others are continuing to do in this area. And I think, you know, having seen what genuinely affordable housing can be provided at John Barker Place and the brilliant work that Settle's been doing in Hitchin and is carrying on across the district, I think that, you know, we've got bright spots, but at the same time, we've got a long way to go. And there are some serious challenges if we're going to meet the needs of all our residents when it comes to housing. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Sean? No. Excellent. In that case, I shall move us on to item number 9, which I believe some of our members of the public might be interested in, and that is strategic planning matters, which Councillor Brown is going to present.
Thank you, Chair. So you have the report, and so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I just wanted to highlight a few things. So under 8.6, you will see that the Strategic Sites Project Board has agreed some guidance on an approval process for master plans and a design review protocol and some sustainability principles. Now, the reason for this was that we've been waiting a long time for our local plan to go through the examination process, and in the absence of an adopted local plan, we wanted to strengthen the standards that we were requiring of developers. And so this is part of this process. So this is kind of a stopgap measure until the local plan, until we have an adopted local plan, and then can put alongside that some supplementary planning documents. So I felt particularly strongly about the sustainability principles and the high standards of design. We can't compel developers because we are working within national government guidance, but we can say, we can request and strongly encourage developers to work to higher standards. So you'll find those as appendices to this document. Then secondly, I just wanted to mention the Nebworth Neighbourhood Plan has been approved by through the referendum that took place at the same time as the local elections in May, and so it now formally forms part of our plan in terms of when we make decisions around planning applications. 8.14, there have been some amendments to the building regulations that the government has introduced, and it's quite substantial. So we think that going forward, so from June 2023, we will have to be implementing these, and the homes must produce 31% less CO2 emissions, which is going to mean that they will probably need heat pumps or some kind of renewable energy generation. So it's significantly raising the standards, which is something I think to be welcomed, but something which is going to be obviously a challenge. I was just going to say under 8.21, the Luton Airport proposal to increase from 18 to 19 million passengers, that was called in by the Secretary of State. We have sent written representations along together with some other districts and boroughs that are affected by these proposals within Hertfordshire. And we just chose to do that because it's more efficient to do it that way. 8.24, the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. We have chosen to, there's a bit of an update to this report. It says it's going to go for consultation over the summer. We decided that wasn't really such a great idea because we want to encourage wider participation as possible. So we are delaying that consultation until the 5th of September. And that means that more people can be involved, and it means it can come to district committees and the public can participate in those meetings. And hopefully it might coincide with some town talks as well, so that we can include as many people as possible in the consultation around that plan, which has some quite radical propositions in it. And we are aware we have a climate change emergency, so it's important that we're radical in those areas. And then finally on this report, I just wanted to draw attention to the work we're doing with electrical vehicle charging. So we're working with county to see if we can identify more opportunities for people that don't have garages and off-street parking where they can charge, to be able to do so close to their home. So looking at possibilities for on-street charging, which is currently not within the county council policy, but we're working with them on that. And then finally, we have identified one car park within each of our major towns where we will be introducing new, updated and improved electrical vehicle charging points. Thank you. Oh, should I just say what the recommendations are? That the report be noted and endorsed. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So reminder to colleagues, if your devices are making funny noises, please ensure they are switched off unless it's a very, very important BBC News alert. Right, so does anyone have any questions for Ruth on the reports? Steve.
Thanks. I mean, just before I ask a question, just an observation. It's regrettable that Hertfordshire continues to be the only council probably in the world that thinks on-street EV charging isn't necessary. Hopefully they'll change their mind eventually. The question I wanted to ask was actually about the building regulation changes. The 31% reduction is presumably for carbon emissions when the building is in use. Do the building regulations contain any changes requiring reduced carbon in construction? But this is quite a significant difference in the amount of carbon which is embodied at construction time. It's at construction time in a concrete house and a wooden house. I wonder if the building regulations are looking at that as well.
Could I ask an officer to respond to that question, please?
Thank you, Ruth. It's my understanding that the changes that came in on the 15th of June, i.e. 6 days ago now, only relate to, as you say, the fabric and the heating and the use of the building. It doesn't actually cover the construction aspect that you're referring to. And I agree, that is a big gap.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this one? Yes, Councillor Albert.
Thanks. A couple of things that's there. I'd probably just say that under 8.8, it's probably useful for maybe either something in MIS or indeed whether there is a value in looking at any additional sort of training needs around for councillors around the sort of master plan and those documents. I think there's some really hugely important information in there, which I found sort of really interesting when I was reading them earlier on. And I wouldn't want to lose that information and make sure that's disseminated out to as wide as possible, both to councillors and obviously wider the public. Obviously it's on the website, but that's really is a really important area of work. You mentioned, I think it was mentioned in the paper, that 8.22, which is this wonderful North Central Growth and Transport Plan of the County Council, which has got things that are very close to some of our folks' hearts around station access and in industrial area access and so on. But it obviously mentions about the A505 corridor study. I'm interested in that particular document. I'd be interested to know how we can get involved within that A505 corridor study in the coming coming period. And then the final thing just to say was that I mean we've got, I think it's the consultation around the cycling and infrastructure plan is certainly, it's probably going to miss or may well miss the area committee meetings, I suspect. Will it, or do you think it will not be till the autumn?
Thank you, Councillor Albert, for those questions. So I'll take that last one first. No, we have changed the consultation period to make sure that they can come to district, specifically said they can come to district committees. So that's an easy one to answer. The one around the central growth and transport plan, the A50 corridor study. So officers are finalising a report at the moment, and there is going to be a presentation to officers and to members at some stage. Possibly July, August, but that may not work with holidays and so forth, but it will be coming to us. And just to say that it's around the Dunstable to Baldock corridor, because obviously part of the A505 then goes into Cambridgeshire, doesn't it? So that was that one. And what was the previous one you were asking about? Oh, the master planning. So yes, I agree. Until I got involved in this portfolio, I knew very little about master planning and the process. So I think it would be good to make all councillors aware of that. I wonder if it could be included in MIS, something about the area on the website that other members could be signposted to. Personally, I found it a very interesting, and I think it's a good approach to planning, to look at sites overall rather than piecemeal. I think it will lead to better results and better quality development.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Hoskins.
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow up on the 505 and express my interest as well. I think there are huge problems, particularly on the pinch points coming into and out of Hitchin. 505 in coming in through up Tilhouse Street and then out again through Cambridge Road. But of particular interest to us is up Tilhouse Street, of course, because it suffers huge problems. So I would welcome some engagement on that.
Thank you, Councillor Hoskins. We will ensure that you have that opportunity to feed that in response to the presentation.
Lovely. Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any further indications of anyone wanting to speak or ask questions. So as a reminder, the recommendations are that we note the report and that we note and endorse appendices A to E. Do you need us to take those separately, or can we take them together? Can we take them together? Yep. If colleagues are happy to take those together. Yep. Okay. Can we move us to a vote, please?
Chair, that's carried.
Lovely, thank you very much. Now, I'm aware that there were a lot of pages in that last report. So agenda item 9 starts on page 365 of the PDFs to assist members in scrolling to that on ModGov. Obviously, there may be a plus minus depending on which device and which app you're using to access the papers. Okay, so this item is the conservation area reviews, and you might have guessed that Councillor Brown is going to be presenting.
Thank you, Chair. So not a huge amount to say on this, just that it's a long time since the conservation areas were first designated in the 60s and 70s. So in 2019, we as a council appointed some consultants to have a look at them. And as a result of that, it was decided that Ashwell and Purton needed a full review. So we employed a consultant to look at that. And as a result of those reviews, there have been some areas added in Ashwell, and in Purton, some added and some taken away. And there are quite strict criteria upon which that's determined. And as I said earlier, they followed the best practice guidance of Historical England. So they have to have certain features in order to be considered worthy of being included in the conservation area. And again, as I said before, these reports are what we're seeking approval for tonight is that these go out for wider consultation. So nothing's been agreed yet. We want to put the proposals out for these proposed amendments to those conservation areas out to wider public consultation. So that's what we're voting on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this report? No. Okay, so the recommendations are that the draft camps, which is a lovely abbreviation, well done, for Ashwell and Pearton are noted, and the approval is given for public consultation to take place on the draft conservation area appraisals and management plans, i.e. the camps, and the proposed amendments to the conservation area boundaries at Ashwell and Pearton. I think colleagues were happy to take both of those recommendations together in one vote. Yes, yes. Okay, so can we move to the vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Which brings us on to the revenue budget outrun, which you will find at page number 521 as printed. As I said earlier, there's no representations from Finance, Audit and Risk Committee on this. So I will move straight to Councillor Albert to present.
Just thank you. Thanks, Chair. I'm trying to skate through these fairly quickly this evening, but obviously just make one or two sort of observations along the way. As I say, as you said, there was no formal comments from Finance, Audit and Risk. Certainly I know the committee obviously thanked Ian Cooper and his staff, and I know the audit, our auditors also obviously thanked Ian Cooper and all his staff for their work in carrying out the various audits and trying to keep up to date with the audits and getting out at the end of this 2021-22 outturn done. It's been a particularly difficult year, and obviously certainly like to thank Ian and all his team for that. Now, obviously, our outturn spend, which is subject to the final conclusion of the audit, was just under 16.9 million, which is about 600,000 down on our Q3 report and about 1.5 million down on the original budget. Most of that overall difference is down to less support needing to be provided to Stevenage Leisure. And there's been a good recovery there, and Councillor Jarvis and I have been meeting with, and officers have been meeting with Stevenage Leisure on a regular basis to get monthly reports from them on progress. Full details in Appendix A for the overall year position and movements this quarter you can find in Table 4. Table 4 also details the carry forward of 172,000 of requests for specific activities that will now take place in 22-23. That takes the total carry forward requests up to 712,000. In effect, this will reduce our medium-term impact on the general fund down to around an 800,000 underspend. We'd also mentioned in the report about some welcome back funding, which unfortunately where the invoices weren't cleared in time. We obviously need to learn some lessons for the future for those, and that was part of some central funding that we had received. Paragraphs 8.16 through to 8.18 detail the various impacts of COVID, and we've talked about this in a number of meetings. Taking into account the impact on leisure, other reductions in income and increased costs, there is a gross impact of about 1.65 million. And after deducting any grant funding and sales fees and charges compensation, the net impact to be covered by the council reserves is just over £770,000. Once it's gone, it's gone. And then whilst government have said to us that they would fully compensate councils, that clearly, as we've mentioned on a number of occasions, hasn't happened, and that's the impact impact upon our reserves. Having said all of that, the table 7 looks positive. It shows an increase in the general fund balance of 1.7 million. However, most of that is through the release of other specific reserves. As I say, you could only use these reserves once. Even with the various underspends, our service spending in 21-22 was still almost 1.8 million above our core funding. So we've still got a lot of work to do to get to an in-year balanced budget in the medium term, especially if our income doesn't fully recover post-COVID. It's clear that any government financial support in relation to COVID has now ended. Table 9 highlights the movement in specific reserves. These movements will need to be approved by council. The main movement relates to the line titled the MHCLG, now DLUHC, where it's lots of government abbreviations, reserves, and the changes of name of the government department. This held the funding provided to the council to provide business rate relief during COVID-19. There's still some residual funding that will need to be released in later years. This special reserve is being released over time to reduce the pressure on the general fund due to the current mismatch between spend and funding. So, Chair, there's some recommendations in front of you there, and obviously it will also be 2.4 recommending a further recommendation to the full council meeting next month. So I'd like to move those recommendations 2.1 to 2.4 as set out in the paper.
Thank you very much. Well, central government not funding local government properly and making life hard for us. What a surprise. If only that could change at some point in the not too distant future. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Councillor Albert on his report? No, I think you've stunned everyone into silence tonight, Ian. Well done. Okay, so what I will do is take the recommendations 2.1 to 2.3, which are the effectively noting and approving the decrease of the net general fund expenditure and the changes to the general fund budget as identified in the tables as one block of recommendations for one vote, and then we'll take 2.4 as a separate vote if everyone's happy. Yeah. Okay, so 2.1 to 2.3, please.
Chair, that's carried.
Lovely, thank you very much. And item recommendation 2.4 is that we recommend to council that it approves the net transfer from the earmarked reserves as identified in table 9. So that's the sum of 8.123 million. So can we have that vote, please?
Chair, that's also carried.
Excellent, thank you very much. And next we have the investment strategy, capital and treasury end of year review. Again, this was seen at Finance Audit and Risk Committee, and I don't think that we had any feedback or referrals from that committee. So Councillor Albert to present.
That's right, Chair. The committee were content with the report. The vast majority of the movement in Q4 on the capital programme is spend that's been moved into 22-23 due to various delays. The overall reduction in the capital programme for 21-22 has meant that the majority of it has been funded from capital receipts reserves. The sale of surplus land has increased those reserves during the year, and they now stand at 7.7 million. As this and the end of year summary, we have to report again the breach of the Treasury strategy during the year as was detailed in paragraph 8.10. Obviously have to pick up any questions in relation to that sort of minor breach. The council continues to manage its surplus cash by prioritising security and liquidity before considering yield, and the yield on investments did increase towards the end of the year with some small increases in the interest rates, but it is running significantly, as we all know, behind the level of inflation. Appendix B sets out more detail in relation to the council's treasury position during the year, set out in recommendation 2.6. Cabinet asked to refer to this to refer this on to council to enable them to approve the 21-22 prudential and treasury indicator outturn positions. So Chair, I'd like to obviously to move those recommendations 2.1 to 2.6 in whatever order you'd like to take them.
Thank you very much. I shall take them after any questions or comments from colleagues on this report. I'm seeing none, and I think that they are all sufficiently of the same type and of a theme that we can take those as one vote unless I hear significant objection. No. Okay, so can we move to the vote, please?
That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item is the Risk Management Quarterly Update and Annual Report. Councillor Albert, are you taking that, or is that going to be Mr. Cooper?
I'm happy to take this. I mean, obviously partly also it's the property of the finance committee, but I'm happy to pick this up. There weren't obviously for the finance committee were happy with the report. We might well want to get sort of Councillor Tyler to actually join in moving the report when it comes to full council. Just to really, I think for this meeting, that this is the last report that you'll see in this format as we'll move to the council delivery plan format from Q1, which I think will be really both helpful and actually relate means that risk and all the key work that we're doing through the council and the council plan, the council delivery plan is closely linked together. The main purpose of this report is to seek approval for the annual report on risk management. This report covers the various activities relating to risk, including insurance, business continuity and health and safety, and is intended to provide assurance to Cabinet and Council that risk is being managed effectively. I and my deputy attend the risk management group meetings. So we obviously now have also standing invitations to the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny and the Chair of the Finance Audit and Risk Committee to attend those meetings. But as I say, therefore, recommendation 2.2 asks us to refer this annual report onto Council. The report also seeks the introduction of a new corporate risk. This risk is in the new Council delivery plan format, but is an overarching risk as it highlights the potential that other projects can't be achieved due to staffing or financial resources not being available. This risk was initially considered in response to the Ukraine situation and the work that came out of that, but equally applies, we believe, to the cost of living situation and the work and financial impacts that are likely to stem from that. So Cabinet are now asked, therefore, to approve this new corporate risk that's in front of you and is set out in this report here. Chair, therefore, I'd like to move those two recommendations, 2.1, which is obviously that introduction of the new corporate risk, and 2 that we note refer the annual report on risk management to Cabinet and to this meeting, and obviously as we've done here, and then on to full council if we agree it today.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Councillor Jarvis.
Yeah, I do have a question in relation to the new corporate risk. I mean, maybe this is covered by the risk management group, but it seems to me that it might be difficult to identify mitigations to a risk as broad as that. I wonder where that process is got to.
I'm happy to, what I can do is take away to perhaps sort of share, and also we will be continue to review those mitigations. You're absolutely right that there will be things that are in our gift, and indeed there are a lot of things that are not in our gift. But yes, we'll certainly make sure that comment's reflected in the report that's there as we take that forward.
Thank you very much. I think that would be incredibly beneficial because, as Councillor Jarvis indicates, that's going to be an incredibly broad risk with the challenges that we're all facing and that our staff are facing as well. Okay, so I'm not seeing anybody else wishing to speak on this, so I'll take both of those recommendations together if colleagues are happy. Can we move to the vote, please?
Chair, that's carried.
Thank you very much. Okay, so this next part is going to be extremely formal and very boring, and I'll read it and make sure that I get it right. It's headed exclusion of press and public, so you can guess what's coming. I would like to propose that under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public are excluded from the meeting on the grounds that the following report will involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the said act as amended. Can I have a seconder? Yes, Councillor Brown.
Happy to second.
Thank you very much. And could we please move to the vote?
That's carried. Thank you.
Excellent. So our IT support will now move the officers and the stream to this chamber to a breakout room so that the meeting can continue. A holding message will be displayed on the YouTube channel. And please give us a few moments to ensure that this happens. And of course, thank you very much, everyone that came this evening. Your time was very much appreciated. Have a good night. I boldly assume that we're back online. Yeah. Okay. Louis, can you do a roll call of officers, please?
Thank you. I'll just do a roll call of all the officers that have remained in the Zoom. Anthony Roach.
Yep, still here.
Steve Crowley. No.
He is left.
Antonio Ciampa.
Yes, I'm here.
Thanks. Joe Dufficy.
Yes, I'm here.
Louise Symes.
Is left.
Sorry. Isabel Allerjus.
Yes, thank you.
And David Martins Hesp.
Yes, I'm still here.
Thank you.
So can I assume that that's all of the officers, Louis? Thank you very much. If you don't tell me, I won't know. I'll just sit here and wait until you cue me. Lovely. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, so the final item on today's agenda is agenda item 13 on the papers, which is the care line in-house provision for non-complex installation and maintenance. Can I ask Councillor Lucas to present?
Thank you, Chair. As per the executive summary, we're looking to bring the full in-house service of providing non-complex installation and maintenance of to Careline customers into the council. The current company is going to be giving up the contract on the 30th of September, so it's quite acute that we need to act on this now. The plan has been fully costed and the risk assessment has been made and the benefits far outweigh the risks. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Lucas? No, I see no questions. In that case, colleagues, can I move us to the final vote of tonight, which is that Cabinet approves a full in-house service provision being established for, oh, Ian, yes, sorry.
Second, if you need a seconder.
I don't know if we do or not, you know?
I'm happy to second.
You can second. Does
and
anyone want to
formally
third?
reserve my right.
And formally reserve your right. Do you believe that somebody might be about to speak out against bringing services in-house in this council, in this cabinet? No. Yes, okay, fine. So the recommendations have been proposed and seconded. Can we please move to the vote?
That motion has carried.
There we go. Excellent. Right, that brings us to the end of this evening's meeting. Thank you very much, colleagues. Well done. Well done.